This what you're seeing right now is very much my reaction to this whole situation. So, the reason why that whole thing stopped and that got suspended was because even though I've got the permission, I've got permission to react to this type of stuff, and I'm friends with the content creators in mind. Let me just check the audio. Yeah, okay, we got a little bit of a BGM going on. All right. Even though that I am friends with the content creators in question, YouTube has hit me with the copyright strike, or its bots have, because I have not, because I'm reacting to someone else's content. I'm stealing someone else's content, basically. Or it thinks I am. So instead, I guess I'll just spend the rest of this time going over these videos as sort of like an overview. So, the reason why I wanted to show off Wildcard / Snyderverse is because he really is like a YouTuber. He's kind of the last of his kind, and it's a type of YouTuber that I've really come to miss. And you'll see that the audio is working out just fine. You'll hear a bit of nice music. Yeah, a bit melancholic. Well, what can you do? This is a melancholic time because I want to express these creators and show them off, but YouTube, it binds my hands. There's nothing I can do. You can't even hear my audio. Very tonally fitting music, yeah. So, even though you can't do it right now, and I suppose this way he will get views, please, I implore all of you, go and watch Wildcard stuff. It's very good, and it's a good insight. It really brings you into, and exposes you to a type of content that you won't really see that much of nowadays. And I appreciate that he's kind of a champion of this type of content. In the immortal words of his only comment on this video, by the way, give that a like, from his good partner right here, bravo Vince, or as it's translated in English, well done Vince, well done Wildcard, these videos are great. Speaking of, I'll briefly go into this guy's channel, because I had planned to later on. So this is Pestergeist, another fella that I met on the BMAS Discord server. And he started off as just sort of like your typical like shitpost channel, but he had these really great series of videos called Global Roster and National Teams, where he has a lot of knowledge on like different cultures and also like a lot of hero shooters in games like Dead by Daylight. And he basically picked one fairly niche nation, such as Nepal, the Dominican Republic, Tunisia. I didn't even know anything about Tunisia other than like Hannibal, until he made these types of videos, and then found any characters from like arcade games or hero shooter games to show them off in. And he's also just like a generally all-around funny guy, and I'll even show you a little bit of his. And then his other video series National Teams is basically taking different team groups from shows and then showing off their cultural influences and the stereotypes that they came from. So if I briefly look, probably my favorite one is this
Hello
one
and
on
welcome
Scooby-Doo.
back to Nationality,
Let me show a
the
little
show
bit
where
of
I'm
it.
not
And
going to
look,
explain
YouTube,
what it's
I'm giving
about,
credit.
because you
I'm
should
giving
just
credit
go and
to him.
watch the first one. Today's Halloween Spooktacular is about the monsters that appear in the episode Mysteries on the Disorient Express from Be Cool Scooby-Doo. Everyone's favorite iteration. For real though, I recommend it.
Yes, here is
The monsters designs in this cartoon, as B said, were pretty great. But he goes through like the different monsters, the Tengu, the Manticore, and like talks about like their cultural interests in a very funny way. Now, I couldn't get away with showing you all of these guys' content, but maybe I can get away with this. This was a I keep saying fan film, a guerrilla film made by, not as, but Asriel's friends. It was directed by Asriel's friend, I believe. But Az was an actor in it. So this is on YouTube, at least on my channel, this would be your first time seeing live action, like what does Az look like in real life, and kind of know that this is the guy that your money's sort of going to. This is very niche. Oh. Sending the vid as a file might take a minute, so YouTube... Oh, okay, that's interesting. Alright, he's sending me the video as a file. Hold on a second. Yeah, that would be a good idea. Okay, I'm just going to leave this here because it reminds me to come back to this guy whenever I'm done talking about this. But sure. We'll move on over to the file he's going to send me. Alright, I'll be right back. Alright then. Sorry about that, folks. So, this is now, we're actually in Discord at the moment, and this is, as we're sort of like fan film, I keep saying fan film, guerrilla film. I explained earlier, this is a film that Az was in, and I have not seen it all the way through. I've seen one shot of it, but actually, yeah, he's in chat. He can even give like a bit of a synopsis of what's going on here. So, quick backstory. This shit important. Beasty, this short film was a film school exam that a mate who reached out needed to pass in order to not get expelled. Oh, really? But the crew fell apart last minute. He found me and we filmed it all in a single evening. Like real men. Wow. That's very impressive. All right then. And luckily we do have subtitles. Now what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the chat so you can get, and sort of make myself smaller so you can really get the breadth of what's going on. Because I believe this is like a horror thing. And I'm probably going to be keeping talking at a minimum. But we'll see how this goes. So it's only nearly 7 minutes long. So we'll see. Alright then, my first live reaction. This here Az. Handsome lad.
Спасибо. Дверь заклинил. Бывает.
Oh, it's more comedic? Okay.
Недавно же поставили, а уже не работает. Вы еще всем подъездом на эту херню скидывались. А ты давно стал деньги считать? С тех пор, как меня не узнает собственная дверь.
So is this like the director along with this here? Along with you? No, second actor, alright. Director's filming. Oh no. Okay. Thought I was going to get like huge another smack from YouTube for a second.
Прикинь, меня мой телефон даже не узнает. Тебя стерли из этой жизни.
Oh, this bathroom's terrifying. Architect said, if you're claustrophobic, fuck you. I hate doing this and things touching my eyes. That's why I can't wear contact lenses. Ah, back in my ears. That was very like Jimmy's brother in Better Call Saul type of editing there. Hired. No, not hired. Chuck, that's his name.
Споткнулся.
Робот превратит кусок холста в шедевр искусства.
Что-то давно ты картин не рисовал. Что случилось?
Ну, вдохновения нету. Вот кажется, что-то во мне сломалось. Надеюсь, ненадолго.
This room is terrifying, by the way. Just everything orange. Other than TV and computer. Flashbang. Oh, I hate these, yeah.
Кто нахер капчу придумал? Идиотизм.
Slab apartments, pretty much.
Нету здесь долбаных птиц!
That he was just mad at the laptop.
Ты в своем уме?
Где мы познакомились?
Ты к чему спрашиваешь?
Где мы познакомились?
В Екатеринбурге. Убери пушку.
Сколько лет мы знакомы?
4. Да блин, убери дуло. Ты больной?
Как зовут твою мать?
Ольга.
Мою?
Мария.
Сколько мы платим за квартиру?
15 тысяч. По 7,5 за каждую. Прошлый месяц ты проиграл мне в карту и платил 8.
А и Б сидели на трубе.
Что?
А упала...
Ой, what was that
что
in the
осталось
corner?
на трубе?
Что за бред?
А и Б сидели на трубе. А упала, Б пропала. Что осталось на трубе?
Это не логичный
Отвечай!
вопрос! Это не логичный
Отвечай!
вопрос! У него нет
Отвечай!
ответа!
All right, it's what he's saying, okay. This is a comedy?
Чел, мы друзья, зачем ты это делаешь?
Заткнись!
Зачем ты это делаешь? Опусти пушку. Ты
The answer is
просто
N.
слишком сильно реагируешь. У тебя был плохой день. У тебя был очень плохой день. Тебе просто надо
Молчи!
отдохнуть. Тебе просто надо отдохнуть. Расслабься. Опусти пушку.
You're a little too good at that. Az has been in quite a few dangerous situations. I'll not say what, just in case. That's the shot that you showed me. That's not quite how I would have done it, but I'll talk about that whenever the film's over. It is an impressive shot, though. There you have it. Maybe I don't get Russian comedy. Hey, fuck me, these noises. Alright, I'm gonna have to stop this. Alright, okay, I've got like some auditory problems. Alright, let me turn the chat back on. But I wanted to talk about this shot, right? Yeah, so this is a cool shot. However, what I would do is not show like the different walk up, or if you are, have it so that he's walking up. Yeah, you know, have it match in the reflection, because you can clearly see that you're still and he's walking towards. Or even like start here. Or hang on, whenever he's raising the hand up. Start here. Yeah, start here. Cut everything before the raising of the hand here. And then it's like a jump scare that this isn't doing what this is. Well, right side isn't doing what the left side is. So you just need to like, it's just a little editing thing. Just cut out this bit from here. No, and cut it there. But I'm trying to figure out, okay, so the answer is N. A and B sitting on a pipe. A fell off, B is gone. A fell off, B is gone. What is left on the pipe? It's N. Okay. Okay. Oh, the walk-up was part of the idea. Symbolic ambience of the reflection initially and then the reveal. But it's not a reveal because you already know that the reflection, this and the reflection doesn't match. Or is it like here at this point they do match? And now it's a scare. Because that's whenever they don't match. So start off matching, then unmatch, and then that's your jump scare. Because that's what happened whenever you showed me that clip, because it's the clip that you showed me, like, started here. But it is still a cool effect. And cool lighting in this bit. And here, I like the lighting here. But anyway, that's as this film. Not sure what to make of it. Oh, sure, don't want to show that. Not quite sure what to make of it. Okay, and the last thing that I want to show you guys. Whoops. YouTube. Wasn't intended as a jump scare, but I see what you mean. Could have had more impact had it been intended as that. Yeah. Well, then that's just my 2 cents so far. But all right, then. That's those creators done. Now, the last one I want to leave off is is this guy. Fishing in Space. He's a really interesting customer. I found him on TikTok whenever one of his videos went viral. And it's hard to describe him. He's just a dude with like a very unusual outlook on life. And it's not an outlook that I necessarily agree with. I actually disagree with a lot of what this guy says. But he's very fascinating to me, and he like opens my eyes to like a very unique and different perspective. But the way that he describes himself is that, well, I'll start off with his title here, Fishing in Space. He got this title, or he picked this name, due to a film, like a very old like B film that he saw, of like, I think it's Bruce Campbell. Bruce Campbell's like the leader of like these survivors in the apocalypse. And Bruce Campbell's like little group goes off to like scavenge and look for food and stuff like that. But then they come across this fisherman, and the Bruce Campbell's character asks him, "What are you fishing for?" And because he's got like plenty of fish, plenty of food, or whatever, and the fisherman just says, "I like catching the fish," and that's what this guy is. He's like fishing out, and if you're interested in his content, then you're welcome to it. If you're not, then you can just ignore it. And what he talks about is a lot of, I don't even want to say it's philosophy, because it really isn't. It's a lot of like unusual perspectives on life, particularly biology. He's very knowledgeable and educated on biology, but also he talks about the connection between biology and organisms, and also like life and how it connects to one another. So the videos that I want to show you of him is him talking about fantasy, for example, and a conversation I had with him, because it's not even something that I necessarily agree with. Oh, I remember you mentioned him ages ago. Yeah. But I can't really do it justice. I just gotta show you this guy to really like get it across. So this is him talking about fantasy.
If you look at any ancient civilization, they've all used fantasy stories to train the young. This is a quote about writing from the greatest fantasy author that ever lived, David Gemmell. This is not only true,
I have not read
it's
any
also
David Gemmell
super
books.
important to now look at the kind of stories we have today, the stories that we train the young with. Who are the fantasy heroes that people grow up on, that help to cultivate and shape their mind, that inspire and motivate them, and the characters that they try to emulate? The heroes and stories from pop culture, from Tolkien to Stephen King to Rick Riordan and George R.R. Martin and Brandon Sanderson, and there's a dozen other authors every year with hit books, and there's all kinds of movies, and none of them are good. None of them are really fantasy. They're all escapist fiction. Are these fiction books and superhero movies well written, well made, fun and cool and convincing even, sure, they're good media, but they're bad stories. The kind of genre of fiction is escapist fiction. Movies are using all of this CGI, and books are doing the same thing. They're using the equivalent of CGI. They're just these elaborate and beautiful worlds. There's no room for the imagination. You have to go off into these worlds. That's why it's escapist fiction, because you have to take yourself.
Yeah, there is a big problem in a lot of fiction these days that the fiction does not trust its audience. By the way, I'm going to try and break this up to try and avoid YouTube like smatting me down. Where I agree on that it does too much to not explain to the how would you say, it explains too much, so to speak. Oh, and I got to show you this guy's. Well, I'll let him keep talking for a bit.
Outside of yourself and experience these worlds, and it means you're bringing nothing back with you. Part of fiction.
Yeah, they struggle to allow any type of fiction to be the audience's own. You keep on hearing this term like death of the author, for example. Whenever like, not only is death of the author not really a bad thing, it should be the intended goal that you'd set out this piece of art and then audiences are allowed to take it and see that art in their own way and make it their own almost.
Is how your imagination integrates that and how that transforms your waking life and how that affects you and helps you to grow and helps you to see new things. But these movies do all the imagination for you, and the heroes are usually born into it. They have superpowers or special abilities or some kind of destiny, or they're super wealthy. So what's happening is our heroes are all these larger-than-life, overly enigmatic characters that you could never emulate. What it's teaching young people is that you're never going to be the hero because you don't have those special qualities. You have to.
That is a big problem these days, where everyone nowadays like really cares about what they are rather than what they do, which is a very big problem in this day and age, where if people think that if you're not special, then what's the point, essentially.
Also said that by nature of definition, only the coward is capable of the highest heroism. A hero is not a real thing. It's an archetype of someone who takes it upon themselves to make things better, to save people. Our archetypes are messed up. The hero is this special, automatically perfect person, and we try to.
I actually want to go back to this point here.
Of definition is that
Hang
you're
on.
never going to be the hero because you don't have those special qualities. You have to wait around for someone else to save the day. David Gamel also said that by nature of definition, only the coward is capable of the highest heroism. A hero is not a real thing.
Yeah, I've heard this quote before. Even though I've never read this guy's stuff before, I've heard this quote before. And it's kind of reminiscent of what I'm trying to do with Az, I suppose. Hang on, let me just read what Az has said here. I know I do like the idea of this YouTube feature, but it seems that there are still React content creators who are absolutely unaffected by this and go on to steal content, but then a random smaller channel who has a friendly watch party with the ones he's reacting to gets smitten down with the hammer of suspension. Yeah, it's definitely frustrating. But I wanted to draw on this quote of only the coward is capable of heroism. I want to expand that onto how you can apply that to your real life, and what fishing here talks about, where a lot of people think that they can't do certain things because they lack the ability in some way. And I want to kind of apply that to what I'm doing with Az right now and kind of this channel. Anytime that I'm talking to people about why I'm doing this with Az, I was surprised by the reaction, because the reaction isn't like supportive that I'm trying to help my friend out with this channel. The reaction seems to be like more concerned. If they don't think that Az is a scam artist who's trying to whittle me out for money, even after like I explained to him that he's not. But even like whenever they get over that like little hurdle, they're thinking like, why are you kind of taking this upon yourself to try and help out this guy who you've never actually met in person and likely will never meet in person. And it's just something that I can never really wrap my head around. Maybe it's just the type of person that I am, but it's it's like, why not do this kind of like objectively good thing? Or why is so many people have like this volatile reaction that I'm kind of doing this objectively good thing of just like trying to help out a guy who's a bit down on his luck? Like, why is that bad? Why is that a problem? Why do you people think that I'm kind of inflicting myself a bit as I do it, and they have so much doubt about it, so to speak? What's wrong with just sort of like doing something for someone else purely because you want to? And it even kind of ties to something that I was kind of frustrated with. Recently, I gave as a gift of like a game, and then this kind of annoyed me, where he said something to the effect of like him getting me a game or like paying me back in some way. And I was very frustrated because like it was a gift, and I really hate this attitude that a lot of people have nowadays of like everything's give and take. Everything's sort of like, oh, what can you do? Kind of, I scratch your back, you scratch my back, kind of thing. What can you do for me, kind of thing? And like everyone has like an ulterior motive, and I hate that. I hate that so much. It's a very like, I think it's like sort of. This is gonna get controversial, and yeah, you might call me like a Bible basher for saying this or whatever, but it's just what's on my mind. I think it's like a consequence of atheism becoming as popular as it is amongst people these days, where they can't possibly wrap their heads around just doing something out of the kindness of your own heart, doing something nice because for no other reason than because you want to, or trying to strive for something that's a bit more beyond yourself, kind of thing. Because maybe this will sound kind of pretentious, but I felt like what I'm kind of doing is like vaguely heroic or vaguely noble, or like maybe those aren't the right words, but it's something good to like strive for. And I just found it so surprising that people had like a negative reaction to it. And I think like maybe our fiction is like a big problem in that, where people are so obsessed with things like gray morality these days, even though whenever you look at these fictional stories, more often than not, they're not gray morality, but rather just sort of like someone's black and white outlook that they're trying to disguise as non-morally biased. And that's sort of like another form of propaganda. But yeah, I'm kind of rambling here, but this is what this guy Fishing for Space does to me. He's gotten me down this like rabbit hole of trying to wrap around these kind of like moral problems, and showing me new perspective, I guess. And I'm hoping, and the reason why I'm showing him to you, even though I might not necessarily agree with everything that he has to say, he is fascinating to me. If I were to talk about like the differences between me and him, the best way that I could describe it in like sort of an Eastern philosophy kind of way is that if he is kind of Taoist philosophy, I'm more Confucianist, I think is the term, where like he's very lucid in his thinking, whereas I'm much more strict and regimented. This guy very much doesn't believe in like objective truths and facts and things like that, whereas I am, and I do believe in things like black and white morality and things like that. Honestly, I understand there's skepticism, and I honestly still find it hard to accept your help because there are people in far worse situations than I am. But after you said that, you will be offended by me denying your help. I do believe that I must do all I can to get out of here, and thank you for your kindness personally. Hell, you helped me get food on the table multiple times, for which I'm eternally grateful for. Yeah, and that's like another thing of something. It's not just you, guys. I'm not coming at you for this, but there's this recent trend amongst people that I have come to call false stoicism, where it's people do this thing that drives me up the wall, where like, and they disguise this as stoicism whenever it really isn't. Chili sent me a message where what they'll do is that anytime that they see some kind of like kind acts towards them, or maybe some kind of luck, or maybe some kind of fortune, or maybe some kind of like good event happen, they seem to do this like sacrificial thing, because in their minds they can't seem to wrap their heads at like something good happening without like some kind of sacrifice being involved. So like for instance, you give someone a gift and they'll do this thing of like, I'll get you back. Oh, I you shouldn't have got this for me. I'll do this, that, or the other thing. When like what you should be doing, for one thing, that's bad because you're making the person who gave this thing to you feel worse. You're making them feel like an asshole for giving you a gift or doing something nice for you. And it's the equivalent of like, you giving someone a present and then they like immediately start whipping themselves and you're like, what the fuck? What are you doing? And you know, where people do this all the time, where like they're constantly like apologetic for everything that they do. We've all met this type of person, and maybe you are this type of person where like you're overly self-conscious about how you conduct yourself in life, and you're constantly apologizing to people about like basic things of what you do, whether that be the way you talk, the way you look, whatever it might be, whenever you're in a social situation. Also, personally, I disagree with the conclusion that atheism is directly connected to this. The you scratch my back, I scratch yours mentality has been present through all history. People do have the tendency to seek their personal goals above all else. I don't think so, because like the more religious outlook is to like aid your brother. And I expand that out to like not just Christianity, but to all religions, because the Abrahamic religions, the Buddhist religions, Hindus all believe this of like help your brother, help your neighbor kind of thing, and do so for no other reason than purely because it's the right thing. But where it's a far more atheist or non-believer or agnostic outlook to view everything as equivalent exchange. That's a very like that's a very like of this world kind of person's outlook, because they are completely locked in onto the outlook that everything needs a cost, everything has a price, everything needs to follow like a sort of set rules, so to speak. But we are getting into like controversial waters. Also, as an atheist, I do not base my mentality on this. I never expect people to help me if that doesn't benefit me. But I will not ask a person who needs help of something if I can help. I should. Doesn't benefit them. Hang on, let me read this again. Also, as an atheist, I do not base my mentality on this. I never expect people who is this to help me if that doesn't benefit them. I hear the autocorrect changed them to me. Okay, hang on. Also, as an atheist, I do not expect my base this on my mentality. I never expect people to help them if that doesn't help me, that doesn't benefit me. But I will not ask a person who needs help of something if I can help, I should. But you're kind of like, you're only viewing this on, if I'm reading this right, you're only viewing this from like your perspective. You're kind of like dismissing what the other person's outlook might be with this kind of mentality, where you're kind of, the problem is you're kind of denying them the opportunity to help you, or to help it. And it might not even necessarily be you. Let's say like it's two strangers helping one another. You're with this outlook, you're kind of preventing stranger A from helping stranger B for no other reason than because he wants to, is what I'm trying to get at. Like, people just can't seem to wrap their heads around that nowadays, and because they can't wrap their heads around it, they never like will do it for themselves. Even whenever they try and help someone out, they think it needs to be some kind of self-sacrificial thing. You even kind of phrase that here, where but I will not ask a person who needs help of something if I can, I should. If I can help, I should. Yeah, but you're taking this, if I can help, I should, as like an obligation kind of thing. And an obligation implies that you're kind of forced to be doing this, rather than like, oh, I should help, one, because it's the right thing, but also because I want to do the right thing kind of aspect. But that's sort of like what I'm trying to get at. I'm rambling here. What I'm trying to get at is I think people need to drop this whole like a good thing can't come without some kind of blood sacrifice attitude, because I think it's become far more detrimental to like a society as a whole. And I think like maybe our fiction is like a big problem in that, where fiction nowadays illustrates that you can't help anyone unless you're special in some kind of way. Whether that be you're special in ability or special in that you're some kind of like downtrodden victim. And you shouldn't help someone unless you're kind of like destined to do so, or you've got some kind of like obligation to do so, which is a bad attitude to have. There's no like stories nowadays where like someone would pursue heroism or glory because they desire to. Hang on, you've said something here. Obligated in the fact that I believe that if I have the power to help someone, that means I am in a position to do something good, and I never want anyone to feel helpless, so I wish to help whenever I can. It's still, I'm kind of getting lost in my own words here, and I feel like I've kind of like gone off the points. I want to like articulate this in some kind of way, but it's difficult and to like get across. And I'll need to like bullet point it to make it like more clear. But it's just like a frustrating attitude that I see everywhere, not just with you as, but like just all over the place. Pretty much everyone that I know has this attitude of no good thing can come without some kind of sacrifice. Whenever I know that's just not true. It's just not a true fact about this this world. Like you don't need suffer. You can gain knowledge from suffering, but something good does not necessarily need to come from suffering. But anyway, I'll go keep going with what this guy said.
It's an archetype of someone who takes it upon themselves to make things better, to save people. Our archetypes are messed up. The hero is this special, automatically perfect person, and we try to emulate that. And so many people are trying to be special because
yes, that's the problem.
Who our heroes are. We've been trained to wait for someone else.
We have this attitude of like, you're not special unless you like actively make yourself special. But I do not expect the same to happen to me when I need help because of what people so often are. And whenever I see an example of someone reaching out a hand, I cherish it deeply, and it's hard to accept it sometimes. Yeah. Which is like the big problem. because every time you kind of like swat away a helping hand, then that teaches that hand to flinch away. Is kind of the point that I'm getting at. So like by people continuously doing this, of like almost punishing the people who help them, they're just encouraging a more selfish outlook on the world, I find. There we go. That's the point that I'm trying to get at. Every time that you punish charity by like increasing the suffering onto yourself, you are actively killing that charity, and by proxy making people less charitable, because then they have the attitude of just like, why do I even bother trying to help people if they themselves will then they themselves will cause their own suffering every time that I try and like help them out. That's a big problem nowadays. Like loads, pretty much everyone that I know has this. That they can't simply just say thank you and accept help.
To come in and do the thing for us. The villain archetypes have been distorted as well. A villain is a lot like a vaccine. It's all of the negative qualities of a society redirected in on itself. It's destructive and it causes a reaction, but it inspires change. And the villain knows this and understands it and plays into it because it's for the better of society, it's for the better of the world, and that's why they do what they do, even at the cost of their own life, and they know that that will be the consequence. The villain archetypes today are these indisputably evil forces. They're not the byproduct of all of the ugliness of society anymore. It's just, here's the bad guy. There's no gray area. There's nothing that makes you think. There's no commentary.
That's another thing of people really don't. You see this term fired out a whole bunch of morally gray. I disagree in that, like, he's saying that all villains nowadays are black and white. I disagree with that because everyone seems to have this, or a lot of people have this attitude of like a villain is only good if you try and make them sympathetic kind of way, or flawed or something like that, where or try and like give them some kind of redeeming quality, and it just feels like so artificial in the way that they do it nowadays. Hang on, let me read what Azad has to say. I understand that, but after years of working alone and not knowing what is help, it's almost like a reflex to expect the helping hands to not be genuine. And when I see others push my hand away, I learn to understand it and try and make them understand that I am sincere. Yeah. It is a massive problem. But anyway, as I was saying about villains, we're like, let's take the Disney films, for example. Is anyone out here really like saying that the new Disney villains in these new movies like Frozen or Big Hero 6 or Incredibles 2, they're really of the quality, even though they're quote unquote more morally grey, which really they're not. They're more of like a straw man of who the director doesn't like. Is anyone really out here saying that they're like better than the more black and white villains of yesteryear? Depends on the case. If you pull off a sympathetic villain well, it's marvelous, and just as marvelous if is an unapologetically dastardly evil bastard if it's written. But neither of those is what this guy is kind of talking about, where the villains that he's looking after, the villains that this guy fishing is interested in are kind of like the consequences of like a bigger societal problem. And because society really doesn't want to look at its problems at the moment, they never make villains that are a symptom of a far bigger issue with what they're working with. Instead, they just make the villain into someone that they vaguely don't like. Usually Trump these days. people like King Candy, but I don't know, he's more so a good twist villain than a character being funny or charming. King Candy, really? Oh, what's his actual name? Turbo? Even the twist of that, it's like, eh, whatever. What is he? I don't really like class him as like one of the greats or whatever. And he's not morally gray, and he's not yeah, that's not morally gray at all. He's upset that he's not popular anymore. That's King Candy's motivation. That's not morally gray. That's absolutely like evil. And but like it's also just kind of lame. It's not evil in like a Jafar kind of way.
On anything. We're just going to send the good guys in, and it's going to be really cool and flashy, and that's the story. In terms of the current trending authors, Brandon Sanderson does this the most. They're just cool, flashy CGI stories. There's nothing about your imagination that goes into the story, and there's nothing you get out of that story. It's just escapist fiction. And this isn't inherently bad, but when these kinds of...
Yeah, that is the point. Everything that I'm talking about here, all of this isn't bad. If it, so long as it's not the only thing that we have access to. But the problem is that it is the only thing that we have access to. Yeah, he's fine. His motive is DSP. The 2022 Batman's Riddler is a good example of a villain being a byproduct of the world, and the Puss in Boots 2 Big Boy is a great example of an unapologetically evil scumbag. Riddler? Not really. He's just kind of a psycho. Because like he explains his motivations in like the interrogation scene, and they're just sort of like they're just like nonsensical, and they're just sort of like they're not even like reflective of what's going on in that world, or even like what's really going on with like this world specifically with America right now, because these modern Batman films are kind of analogous to America these days. The only like kind of thing with like Riddler that's kind of shits for a societal problem these days is the kind of incel internet loner angle that he has. But you only get like that's only in like his design, a little bit in his acting, and like brief snippets here and there, like whenever he says, "Hey guys," much how I do whenever I'm talking to Discord chat. Easily the funniest part of that film. He goes, "Hey guys," because we've all been in that Discord call where we know someone or we are someone that talks like that. You do question how the guard never decided to do his job and check the game for weird stuff. LOL. I keep forgetting about 2022 Batman. He grew up in the projects. He's angry at the world, at not just the corruption, but also being a internet person. A small person. Yeah.
Stories were all that train the young. That's when you run into all of these problems. Nobody believes in themselves and trusts in their abilities. No one even has the drive to obtain abilities if you don't have any. You just have to be naturally special, and everyone else has to recognize you as special, and then maybe you can do something. I'll end with this last.
That's probably the best point here. I want to hear him repeat it.
Story, and there's nothing you get out of that story. It's just escapist fiction. And this isn't inherently bad, but when these kinds of stories were all that train the young, that's when you run into all of these problems.
This is it. Listen to this.
Themselves and trusts in their abilities. No one even has the drive to obtain abilities if you don't have any. You just have to be naturally special, and everyone else has to recognize you as special, and then maybe you can do something. I'll end with this last quote from David Gamel. He says that the real magic of fantasy fiction is that it can feed souls and change lives.
Okay, and I kind of want to show off something here that I mentioned in the comments. He said to lash out at the world for a vengeful manner, not for justice, fooling himself into believing in his righteousness. He does it in the end to amount to something, only proving how small and petty he is. The reason you did see much of classic Disney villains is because many articles game since complaining about one-sided villains and want more complexity. And yeah, but like the villains that we're getting nowadays aren't complex. And like, yeah, again, I wouldn't even say Riddler's all that complex. He's angry at the world. Just, you know, that's not like it's just too kind of a vague I'm mad kind of thing, do you know? Do you kind of get what I'm getting at here? But anyway, I want to talk about this point here, because I actually, even though I'm kind of doxing myself, I wanted to show this off because I did comment on this video 5 months ago. You're getting morally gray. That's where complexity starts. Yeah, I get you. No, it's not even morally gray, and it's definitely not complex. Nothing is this is why it's frustrating. Nothing is complex about modern day Disney films, and I'm sorry, as nothing's complex about the Riddler. It's pretty black and white of him just being a psycho. So yeah, I wrote this. Weirdly, fantasy in video games somewhat taps into what you're saying. It still has all the problems you listed off with heroes and villains and the imagination being done for you. But the quality built into video games is that the person playing it has no choice but to be an active participant. I kind of nicked this from B whenever he compared video games to theme parks, because unlike in other forms of media, in a theme park and in a video game, you are an active participant in the story. The villain isn't going to be defeated by you waiting for another hero to do it. You have to either finish the quest or give up. The society of that world is relying on you, and that kind of motivates you to be you to do good in the world, regardless of whether you're special or not. And that's probably like one of the great moral lessons video games teaches, and that's probably like the thing that's kind of motivated me to do all this stuff for as. I attribute video games to developing this moral code in me a lot. I think video games were a huge factor in me wanting to do this for as, because I was looking at the problems that as had, and all of our kind of like mutual friends were kind of looking at the problems that as was going through, and we were all looking at it, and I was just sort of like, well, like, these problems are very clearly not going to solve themselves. So I kind of took it upon myself. It was just sort of like, well, what can I do? Let me see what can I do in that axis. I would like to debate this with you, like in a DM or call or something, that among other things we are contentious on. What is thine bar of complexity by which thou shalt judge art, monsieur? It's just like not what I'm looking for, kind of thing, and it's not what this guy's talking about either. Is the angle that I'm getting at. I'll link this video because it's very good, but I want to finish this point here. I noticed this when people when looking at people that I know who are gamers or movie fans, the gamers tend to be a lot more proactive, competitive, and practical thinking, whereas the movie fans are more passive. And then Fishing said, I agree. I think at least for some games, the storytelling is genuinely the best of any in modern society. You'll see this in random indie games that just touch on real things. I should play more indie games that have like really cool, unique stories. If you have any like really niche indie games you want to recommend, please do. It's also, like you said, a participating experience, which is more true to original storytelling prior to writing. Fascinating stuff. Thanks for commenting. Yeah, that's also another thing that this guy kind of delves into. He's really interesting in hearing him talk about like old-fashioned storytelling, like oral storytelling. I'm not talking about like writing. I mean like even before writing. Old-fashioned storytellings that we would recite to one another through poetry, through performative arts, were very much like volunteer, like the audience was an active participant in all this. Kind of like streaming as well. You guys are an active. This what you're watching right here, this is performative arts, and you're all involved in this. You can shout at me that I'm an idiot and I'm wrong, and actually the Riddler is Kino. Whereas like in a movie or a let's play or something like that, you just have to sit there and like take it for whatever it is. And I really like to touch on this in like my channel and like things that I'd like to explore, where I would like to create some kind of art where it was more oral and it was more of an audience like participation. That's kind of like what I do with my analysis videos, where like I don't script anything. This is all like very off the cuff, off the dome. We're sitting in front of a guy denying the peak keyness of the Batman in front of a digital campfire. Yes, yes, yes. But I'd like to incorporate this in my channel of like kind of this old-fashioned oral storytelling where like it's more performative. I like to compare myself of like, so if we look at someone like B-Mask or Matthew Matosis, the way that they make their videos, they're very much like architects. Like before they have even put in a voice to anything in the video, before they even did a smidge of editing, they have this all like planned out like an architect perfectly down to the last like inch and polished to a mirror shine. Whereas like I am more of like a priest or like a stand-up comedian where it's like very off the cuff, very like lucid, very like, I'm kind of searching for a point here that I can't quite put my finger on it. But like that's why I want to get you guys involved in this too. Because you've kind of seen me flounder a bit and trying to reach for these certain points because they're hard to reach for. But that's why I want you guys here, because we're kind of trying to find it together in a way. And this guy kind of dives into all that. I really recommend his videos. Let's check out this other video that he's made.
What would you say if I asked you, what is more beautiful, grass or art? It is just grass, you say. Those are spiky green things, lowest of all the life forms that you step on. Art, you exclaim, art is humanity's most exalted expression of creativity and imagination. It is timeless proof of human exceptionalism. Amidst a chaotic, random, and entropic universe, art alone captures the beauty of all things and preserves it so that we may all appreciate it. But that is wrong. Art is nothing more than a frozen story, and beauty is something useful that you form an emotional connection to. What if I were to burn that art, de-thawing the freeze that incapacitates and encourages complacency? We can never beat the great works of art that exist. So destroy them. Use that as fuel to move on from the perverse obsession with longevity. The poets of every generation.
I do agree in that like a lot of people are like obsessed with preserving certain arts rather than just enjoying in the moment. And again, I recommend this video. I don't completely agree with this. It's a bit, if I watch it for too long, then YouTube might give me a slap again. So I'll stop here, but by all means watch it. And like, again, I don't even agree with everything that this guy says, but he's one of the most fascinating content creators right now who gets criminally low views. So fishing in space, check him out on YouTube, check him out on TikTok. And yeah, I think I'll wrap this up here. So thank you all for joining me today, and I hope, like, even if you didn't quite agree, you find this stuff kind of interesting. So I will leave you all with some words from the good book. Let me turn the lights on real quick. So what we got here? Proverbs chapter 7. My son, keep my word and lay up my precepts with thee. Son, keep my commandments, and thou shalt live, and my law as the apple of thy eye. Bind it upon thy finger, write it upon thy tables of thy heart. Say to wisdom, thou art my sister, and I call prudence my friend. All right then, well, I'll leave you all with that. It's very like words that kind of tie in today of like a pursuit of knowledge. Thank you very much. Thank you for checking out Wildcard. Please check out all these YouTubers that I've shown today. Oh wait, hang on. Let me see. Also, as for helping me, I am currently going through a new round of court proceedings. Fingers crossed, if it goes well for me, I'll be able to finally able to be far better position in my life. I'd finally be no longer shackled to an apartment that has become a gilded prison, which forces me to pay the sum of 2 salaries for it. Thank you very much for everything, dude. You're the best. Thank you, Wildcard / Snyderverse. Please check all of these guys out. They make great content, and I hope you all have a good day. And if you're not having a good day, I hope your day gets better. And know that if I die and you lot outlive me, know that I will speak well of all of you in heaven and plead for your cases. So I will see you a lot later. Bye-bye.